Circuit Court is now in session for the St. Clair County mock trial. The Honorable Judge Dan Kelly is presiding.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Please have a seat. And welcome. We are again convened now for purposes of conducting mock trials for the competition that's been sponsored by the St. Clair County Bar Association. This is a very important day for you, but it's also a very exciting and important day for us because we have an opportunity to see some of the best and the brightest in this community come forward and to display not only their talents, but to demonstrate how hard they have applied themselves to this task. And I'm sure that this group will not disappoint. I'm going to begin by introducing myself. As stated, I'm Judge Dan Kelly. I'm the Chief Judge of the Circuit Court here in this county. And I will be assisted here by a number of people, including the bailiff, who is the timekeeper here. I'm going to let him introduce himself and also give you a little bit about his background and involvement.
Good morning. My name is Brent Old. I'm a deputy for St. Clair County Sheriff's Office. I've worked for nearly 11 years between here and San Luis County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently the school resource deputy at Anchor Bay High School.
Thank you. And in the jury box as judges for the competition, we have a number of people. I'll begin with John Adair.
Good morning. My name is John Adair. I'm an attorney here in Port Huron. I'm glad to participate in the mock trial competition with you here today. I know that some of you are rushed to get here. You had some overlapping, and I suggest that we all just relax and enjoy yourselves. You'll do great. Nobody knows the case better than you do, and so have fun while you're doing it, and because that's the best part about being a lawyer. I practice in many different areas of the law, but being in the courtroom is the best part about being a lawyer. So relax and have fun. I'm also the president of the Bar Association, so on behalf of the Bar Association, I want to welcome you here.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson.
Good morning. I'm Mark Davidson, also an attorney practicing here in Port Huron for a little over 30 years. And I've judged all of these since it started, so this is my 6th year, and I really look forward. It's like one of the highlights of my years is coming here to watch you do your good work. You got your first round behind you, so you've got your adrenaline has already kicked in. So again, remember to take your time, don't rush it, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you. Mr. West.
Good morning. My name is Mike West. I've been a trial attorney in St. Clair County for over 28 years. I've tried virtually every type of criminal case you can think of, from simple things to the most serious, I guess, first-degree murder cases. Tried a variety of different civil cases over the years as well. Those of you, I don't know which team is the one that is rushing in here, but you're starting to see what it feels like to be a real lawyer, because that's what we have to do. We have to run from court to court sometimes, change our hat from plaintiff to defendant, and hope like heck we're ready to go. So hope you guys are relaxed and have fun.
Okay, thank you very much. And Sheriff?
Good morning. I'm Tim Donlin, the current Sheriff of St. Clair County. I'm on my 23rd year with the Sheriff's Office, 3rd year in office as the Sheriff. I was a lieutenant prior with the organization. I've been a bailiff the last 5 years and provide the bailiffs through our organization, and this year I'm on the jury, so it's a nice change for me. And I look forward every year to seeing the best of the young kids, because unfortunately we don't always in our profession. So it's wonderful to come out and see the good kids that are working hard. So relax, enjoy yourself. I know you all do very well.
Thank you very much. Well, as you are aware and are now prepared to proceed, we do have the matter of the plaintiff, Jamie Anderson versus Taylor Williams, the defendant. I'm going to ask that the attorneys place their appearances on the record, that is, introduce themselves, and we'll begin with the plaintiff's team.
I'm Chelsea Wilcrum, and I will be directing Officer Hop, and I will be crossing Sensei Cliff.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Valerie Farley, and I will be directing Dr. Marty Robertson and crossing Dr. Sidney Freed.
Thank you.
My name is Courtney Weiss. I will be directing Jamie Anderson and crossing the defendant, Taylor Williams.
Okay, thank you. And for the defense?
May it please the court and members of the jury. My name is Joe Joslin, and I will be giving the opening statement for the defense side. I will also be directing Dr. Sidney Freed and crossing Dr. Martin Robertson.
Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Cara Helzer. I will be directing Pat Clifford and cross-examining Chris Hopp.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Misty Bushline. I will be giving the closing statement along with directing Taylor Williams and cross-examining Jamie Anderson.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Morgan DeZingle, and I will be portraying the character of Taylor Williams.
My name is Hannah White, and I'll be portraying the part of Pat Clifford.
My name is Matthew Lee, and I will be portraying the part of Sidney Freed.
I'm Joseph Steyer, and I'll be portraying the part of Jamie Anderson.
My name is Hope Thompson, and I'll be portraying the part of Marty Robertson.
My name is Joshua Kenny, and I'll be portraying Officer Chris Hopp.
Okay. Are the parties ready to proceed? Is the plaintiff ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is the defense ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor.
Okay, very well, then we can commence the trial with the opening statements. You may proceed.
Before we begin, Your Honor, I would like to start off by saying, can myself and my co-counsel and also the opposing counsel be allowed to move around the courtroom freely?
If you'd like to, I have no objections to that.
Okay. May it please the court. Good morning. I'm Chelsea Booker, along with my co-counsel, Ms. Courtney Weiss and Valerie Farr. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, we will be representing the plaintiff, Jamie Anderson. Today, we will be bringing before you a case in which a young, innocent Jamie Anderson, who was on the right path of becoming his class valedictorian and an all-around stand-up individual who was also a sure-win for the Google Scholarship, had all this brutally ripped away from him when Taylor Williams, the defendant, decided to eliminate her competition through cyber-stalking Jamie Anderson to the point of him developing generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, which caused Jamie Anderson to lose any chance that he had of being his school's valedictorian in the last quarter of his senior year because his grades fell. Now I just want to take this moment and tell you what generalized anxiety disorder is. Generalized anxiety disorder is a disorder that's caused by environmental stresses, such as stalking, or in this case, cyber stalking. Jamie Anderson. The generalized anxiety disorder brought symptoms to Jamie Anderson such as heart palpitations, sweating, nausea, feelings of panic, and even more. And today, we will be presenting three witnesses, the testimony of three witnesses, who will help us to prove the four elements of our case, which are that Taylor Williams is in fact fatal flaw, that Jamie Anderson received at least 2 electronic messages from fatal flaw, and that these harassing messages, Jamie Anderson had a response to them from fatal flaw and shockwave. And fourth, that any reasonable person would have had the exact same reaction to these messages. Now, the testimony that you will be hearing, the first of which will be that of Officer Hopp. Officer Hopp, you will hear that the victim, Jamie Anderson, received at least 2 electronic messages. You will hear that Taylor Williams is in fact fatal flaw, and using the screen name fatal flaw, he sent threatening messages of poisoned water bottles and making Jamie Anderson, the focal point of an experiment at which he would be stalked. You will hear all of this. And through chat records from Officer Hopp, you will also hear the reactions of other students who were in the chat room and their reactions. The second testimony you will hear today will be that of Dr. Robertson, who is Jamie's family practitioner, who has been with Jamie since age 6, and who can tell you of any dramatic shifts in Jamie's mental equilibrium. And the third witness that you will hear today will be that of Jamie Anderson, who will tell you of the brutal, the undescribable, and the hurtful messages that he had to endure from Taylor Williams. And in doing this, we, the plaintiff, are confident that you will find Taylor Williams, beyond a preponderance of the evidence, guilty, liable for the stalking that he caused for Jamie Anderson, on Jamie Anderson. Now, I just want to take a moment and describe what preponderance of the evidence is. It's a 51%, a shift in one direction. And we, the plaintiff, are confident that that shift, that 51%, will be in finding Taylor Williams liable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, would the defense like to make an opening statement now or reserve it until later?
We would like to make it now, Your Honor.
Then you may do so.
May it please the court and members of the jury. Today, Taylor Williams sits before you, a girl fresh out of high school, ready to begin her new life. You're all here because of the plaintiff, Taylor Williams. Excuse me, Jamie Anderson. She blames Taylor for her generalized anxiety disorder. Now it is up to the job of the plaintiff's side to prove, by a preponderance of the evidence, as they've already told you, that this is true. Preponderance of the evidence is a weighing of the scales of justice. Now, there is no evidence that they'll be able to show today that will connect my client to the username Fatal Flaw. As defense, we have no obligation to prove anything to you. But we won't have to worry about that, because they won't be able to prove anything to you. You will hear testimony today that multiple people, the entire school actually, had access to the Fatal Flaw account. You will also hear testimony that the officer, Chris Hopp, wanted to bring criminal cyberstalking charges against Taylor. He wasn't able to. The evidence was so flimsy, it never even made it to trial. You will also hear testimony from the doctor, Sidney Freed. Now, he will testify that Jamie was exaggerating her symptoms. He will testify that she never even felt panicked enough to press the button in the chat room that would have stopped everything. Stopped everything! You will hear multiple testimonies today that will say the threatening email account and the Fatal Flaw account and the MSpace page that was sent to Jamie, they're traceable to no one. No one. There's no connection between Taylor Williams and the supposed cyberstalking that Jamie is claiming here today. Now, we are very sorry that Jamie is suffering from generalized anxiety disorder. It's truly tragic. But a worse tragedy yet would be blaming an innocent person just because it's convenient. We know that you'll fairly analyze us and provide justice in this case. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll call upon the plaintiff to proceed with their proofs. You may call your first witness.
Plaintiff would like to call Officer Chris Hopp.
Thank you. You may move into the witness stand, and the bailiff will.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully conform to the rules of this mock trial tournament? I do. Please be seated.
You may proceed.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Officer Chris Hopp.
And Chris Hopp, Officer Hopp, what is your occupation?
I'm a Clearwater City police officer, and I'm also a member of our elite cybercrimes division.
And what qualifies you to be an elite cybercrime squad member?
Well, to be on the squad, you have to have special training in computers. I graduated with honors 10 years ago from Northern Michigan University with a degree in computer science. After that, I joined the Navy for 4 years. I was a computer technician aboard the USS Reliant, and ever since then, I've been with the police force.
And Officer Hopp, what is the purpose of the elite cybercrime squad?
Well, we investigate a wide array of cybercrimes ranging anywhere from identity theft to child predation to a cyberstalking like today's case.
Okay, and now we're gonna go to the night of March 12th. Could you tell the court what happened that night?
Yes, I was on duty that night, and Jamie Anderson and his parents came in, and filed a complaint concerning a cyberstalker. And I, at that point, did my best to conduct an interview with Jamie Anderson to learn what had happened.
And were you able to conduct questioning with Jamie Anderson when he was in this state?
Eventually I was, but it took me quite some time to get him to calm down to the point where he was in a reasonable state and could tell me what had happened. And once I learned what had happened, it didn't surprise me at all that he was so disturbed.
Okay. And once Jamie Anderson was in a calmer state, what could you gather from your interview with him?
Well, I learned that there had been an incident on a school chat room in which somebody had been harassing him and trying to scare him. I also learned that 2 days prior, on March 10th, there had been an incident in the Clearwater High School cafeteria in which Taylor Williams had came up and made fun of Jamie for being nicknamed the Jam.
Okay. And could you tell the course about the incident on March 10th?
Yes, basically, like I said, Taylor had come up and made fun of Jamie for being nicknamed the Jam. Jamie's Clearwater High School chat name was Jammin' at Clearwater High School and was referred to as Jam a lot. So it showed that Taylor may have known that Jamie was Jammin' at Clearwater High School, and this scared Jamie a lot because at this point there had been incidents taking place there.
Okay. And why did you request the chat records?
Well, from what I learned from Jamie during my interview, I learned that there had definitely been something that had taken place online, and that for me to get an accurate idea of what had happened, I would need to examine these chat records.
And you became very familiar with these chat records?
Yes, I did. I looked them over a lot.
Your Honor, asking permission to approach the bench what has been marked as exhibits 1 through 4.
You may.
The bench.
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, very well then. May have the witness identify them and then move for their admission.
Okay. Could you please identify documents 1 through 4?
Yes. Document 1 is the chat room excerpt from Monday, March 8th. Exhibit 2 is the chat room excerpt from Wednesday, March 10th. Exhibit 3 is the chat room excerpt from Thursday, March 11th. And Exhibit 4 is the chat room excerpt from Friday, March 12th.
Okay. And have these documents been altered in any way?
No, they have not. They're the exact same that Pat Clever provided me with.
Okay. Plaintiff would like to move that these exhibits be entered as evidence.
Okay, very well, and there was no objection, is that correct?
Yes, no.
Okay, very well, then those exhibits are now admitted into evidence.
Okay. And was there anything that stood out to you in these exhibits?
Yes, I'll start with Exhibit 1. This is the first time that you see somebody known as Fatal Flaw start posting on the school chat room. Jamie is jamming at Clearwater High School and at 5:11 had said, "I'm going out now, get some PM sunshine and exercise." Fatal Flaw immediately responded, "Jam's in the window, exercise all you want, my friend, you won't be able to run fast enough." This is just the first of very many disturbing comments made by Fatal Flaw in Jamie's direction.
And could you tell the courts of the reactions of the other students in the chat room?
It was clear that there were some people that were disturbed by these comments. At 5:15 on Monday, March 8th, somebody known as Cannonball posted, "Fatal Flaw, you're creeping me out. You are new here, aren't you? Don't I remember you from last year? Where'd you come from anyway? Gotta go."
Okay, and throughout your investigation, who was Shockwave?
Shockwave was Taylor Williams.
Okay. And was there anything that stuck out to you that was alarming that Shockwave said?
Yes, there were some things that Shockwave said that were rather disturbing. There had been an incident in history class on Thursday that there were some students talking about on the chat room. It had been a discussion about fear, and Shockwave came on and said, "Some criminals use fear as control. Fear is stronger than chains and fences." And later at 4:03, Shockwave posted, "Wonder if anyone our age would handle the situation well. It would be interesting to try to recreate the atmosphere."
So, is he speaking of an experiment?
You could say that, yes, it did sound an awful lot like an experiment. At 4:06, Shockwave says, "It would be amazing to study pain and suffering. Doctors must do it all the time. Long-term effects of suffering could produce some interesting data. Volunteers, hey Jam, you still here?"
Okay, and was this the first time an experiment was mentioned?
Yes, it was the first time an experiment had been mentioned.
And throughout your investigation, did you hear of any other experiments?
Yes, there were several experiments. There's references to what sounded like experiments that kept popping up. I even at one point saw an MSpace page called the Jamming at Clearwater High School experiment.
Okay, Your Honor, requesting permission to approach the bench and waive the markers 5 and 6.
Yes,
No objections, Your Honor.
thank you.
I'm now handing you what has been marked as Exhibits 5 and 6. Could you please identify them?
Exhibit 5 is an email that Jamie Anderson received from user 94040@kzmail.com. And in the email, there was a link to a MSpace page. The Exhibit 6 is the MSpace page that the link led to.
Has these documents been authored in any way?
No, they have not.
Plaintiff would now like to move that they be entered into court as evidence.
Thank you. And there being no objections, the exhibits are now admitted. That is correct.
Okay, and could you please read the hypothesis on document 6 or the MSpace page?
Okay, yes, this MSpace page is called Jamming at Clearwater High School Experiment, and it's described as an experiment in creating fear. The hypothesis of this experiment is the fear of harm will be more painful both physically and mentally to the subject than the actual harm that occurs.
Okay, and what was the password to this site? I'm sorry. Could you please tell me what was the username that's being used on the site?
The username?
Yes. Was it Fatal Flaw?
Well, in the email, there had been somebody referred to as FF, which I assumed was Fatal Flaw, so I believe that the MSpace page was created by whoever was Fatal Flaw.
And this MSpace page spoke of an experiment that was referred to earlier by Shockwave in the chat record, so what could you infer from this?
Well, I was seeing as the MSpace page sounded a lot like comments made by Shockwave, I was able to conclude that Shockwave had created the MSpace page and was Fatal Flaw, so Taylor Williams was all these people.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
You may cross-examine. You may.
Your Honor, I'd like to start this with handing the witness Exhibit 1 again.
You may.
It's unanimous while you have it. Is Shockwave signed in at all this day?
No, he's not.
And is there ever any evidence that Fatal Flaw is Shockwave?
I believe so.
Fatal Flaw was Taylor Williams' pseudonym in her junior year, correct?
Yes,
So it was deactivated at the end of that year, correct?
it should have been.
And, Your Honor, may I also have the witness turn to Exhibit 5, please? Could you please read the message to me?
FF may lose control at any time, longs to test your control. How long will you last, my jammin' friend? If you're afraid, you better stay locked up in your second floor roost and not go out to play. You could be sorry, you could be dead.
This email is referencing to Fatal Flaw in third person, correct?
Yes.
And during the chat rooms, there were countless users signing in, right?
Yes, there were.
So anyone that had seen any of these statements could have created this username and password for the email and sent this?
It's possible, but the content of the email sounded a lot like things that Fatal Flaw had said, so they were linked, it seemed to me.
So yes or no, anybody could have taken anything that was said in the chat room and created this?
Yes, technically.
No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And the witness may step down. And you may call your next witness.
Plaintiff would like to call Marty Robertson.
Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully conform to the rules of this mock trial? Please be seated.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
My name is Marty Robertson, and I'm a family practitioner in Clearwater High School.
Dr. Robertson, I want to ask you this right up front so that the jurors know. Why is it that you are here today?
I was asked to come and testify on behalf of Mr. Jamie Anderson and a condition in which he suffers, such as generalized anxiety disorder.
Dr. Robertson, please tell the jury about your education.
I have my BA from Portland State University and my MD from the University of Oregon Health and Science Centers. I did both my residency and my internship here as well.
What does the field of family practicing encompass?
We treat a wide variety of issues within our patients. We treat the entire family, no segregations in any way, shape, or form.
And what work have you done since earning your MD degree?
I have two CAQs, Certificates of Added Qualifications, in adolescence and sleep medicines, which allow me to diagnose my patients better.
Do you have any specialty with your field?
As I mentioned, I have the two CAQs, and I also take a series of exams yearly in the anxiety disorder field.
Your Honor, we tender Dr. Marty D. Robertson as an expert witness in the field of family medicine and diagnosis of anxiety disorders.
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, very well, then the court will qualify her as an expert and allow her to give opinion testimony in that area.
Thank you. Dr. Robertson, do you have an opinion as to the cause of Jamie Anderson's generalized anxiety disorder?
Yes, I believe that Mr. Anderson's generalized anxiety disorder is a direct cause of the cyber stalking in which was directed at him in the internet and chat rooms.
Did you reduce your opinions to writing?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I would like to approach the bench with what has been marked as Exhibit 9.
Thank you.
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Please.
Can you identify this, please?
Yes, this is Jamie Anderson's medical record in which I made.
And you're familiar with this, correct?
Yes, very familiar.
Has anything on this document been altered?
And no, not at all.
Okay, thank you. How did you reach your diagnosis?
When Jamie came to see me in December of 2009, he seemed like a very average teenager. When he came back to see me in April of 2009, he lost 13 pounds, which is a substantial amount of weight loss, especially in a teenager. It was at this point, after talking to him, I was able to defer that I believed he had generalized anxiety disorder.
And what did you do after your initial diagnosis?
After my initial diagnosis, I decided to run a series of exams, such as an MRI and a CAT scan. At this point, I decided that Jamie Anderson had generalized anxiety disorder, but decided to send him to a psychotherapist to make sure that my diagnosis was in fact correct, and it was confirmed.
Okay. Earlier in your testimony, you stated, "It is my professional medical opinion that Jamie's generalized anxiety disorder, also known as GAD, is a direct consequence of the cyber stalking on the internet and in the chat room." And how did you reach your conclusion?
Well, like I said, after talking to Jamie for a while and reading the chat rooms over, I could see that he kept referring to having these symptoms of insomnia and panic attacks because of what he'd been told in the chat rooms.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. You may cross-examine.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Robertson, what are the 3 factors factors of generalized anxiety disorder?
There's three main causes in which we know of, one being brain chemistry, one being environmental stresses, and one being genetics.
And when you assumed environmental stressors, what did you blame?
I never assumed environmental stressors. After having the series of CAT scans done and everything levels coming back normal, I realized that there was no issues with the brain chemistry and there was no issues with the genetics from other testings. And I was able to conclude that it was in fact environmental stressors, in which forth Jamie told me about the chat rooms, and I realized that was the cause.
And what sorts of environmental stressors can cause generalized anxiety disorder?
Intimate relationships with certain people being broke off suddenly. There's many different things.
Could death of a loved one cause it?
Yes, but
Could changing schools?
Yes, but
Could
as
one's parents being divorced?
Objection, Your Honor, not letting the witness finish.
Response, Your Honor. She didn't know exactly what environmental stressors were causing the generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm helping her by refreshing her memory of what points she claimed in her affidavit.
I'll let you proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Could divorcing parents cause generalized anxiety disorder?
None of these are relevant within Mr. Anderson's case, but they are possible.
And could abuse cause generalized anxiety disorder?
Once again, not relevant, but possible.
Dr. Robertson, when you treat victims of abuse, do they readily tell you that they're being abused?
Yes, because they want treatment.
And when you're seeing someone for a routine evaluation, which is what you did with Jamie, do they readily admit when one of their loved ones have just died?
I was not seeing Jamie for a routine evaluation in April. He came to me because he was experiencing these symptoms of insomnia, lack of focus, panics coming out of nowhere.
When you did see Jamie for a routine evaluation, did she mention any death of a loved one?
No, Mr.
Now,
Jamie
when
Anderson did not.
you treat patients who are children, do they readily admit when their parents are having marital issues?
I did not treat Mr. Anderson for these.
I didn't ask
Yes, I
about
would.
Ms. Anderson. I asked general treatments of any patient. Do they readily admit if their parents are being divorced?
If they in fact want treatment for this, then yes, they would.
And what grade do you know was Jamie Anderson in?
He was a senior.
And when you're a senior, do you generally graduate and go to college?
Yes, that
To your
is
knowledge,
most
is that
seniors'
Jamie
plans.
Anderson's plan? Was that Jamie Anderson's plan?
To my knowledge and what he told me, yes, that was his plan.
Now, in changing schools is an environmental stressors. Would going to college count as changing schools?
Maybe, but I don't really see how that would change schools because that was something he wanted to go. It's not like you're being forced to change schools, which would bring on panic disorders. He was excited to go.
Is that a yes, it was changing schools?
I suppose.
Objection, asked and answered.
She didn't answer my question, Your Honor. I asked if that was considered changing schools, and she went off with a narrative.
The objection will be overruled. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. You said that you prescribed a CAT scan. What is that?
It is a testing done on the brain so we can measure the chemical levels within it.
And indeed, it shows a cross-sectional view of the brain using x-rays.
Yes, it does.
Now, what does a CAT scan show?
I believe you just told the court.
I mean, like structures of the brain. What does it show specifically? How would this be a helpful diagnosis tool?
It allows us to see the brain chemistries and see if there's abnormal levers, in which I have already said, and there was no abnormal levers within Jamie Anderson's brain.
Well, it wouldn't show chemical abnormalities. It would show physical abnormalities, correct?
Yes.
Now, were you aware that it's difficult to see the brain stem from CAT scan images? Yes, CAT scan images.
Yes.
Yes, you were. Are you aware that the brain stem is part of the alerts and warning system of the human body?
Yes, but so is the brain itself.
And the pons, which is part of the brain stem that helps with sleeping?
Yes.
Were you aware that the medulla controls heart rate?
Yes.
And were you aware that the reticular formation controls alertness?
Yes.
Now, all of those things are part of the back of the brain, the posterior, which is the brainstem, which you've already said is difficult to see in the CAT scan images, correct?
Difficult, but not impossible to see.
But still difficult, yes?
Like I said, yes.
Now, those things that control sleep, heart rate, and alertness, and warning systems, they were hard to see. What were you trying to use, excuse me, why were you looking at those things? What symptoms was Jamie telling you she had that made you look at that?
Shortness of breath, insomnia, which would be hard time sleeping, feelings of panic.
So all things that you couldn't necessarily see very well on the CAT scan.
I could see them
But you couldn't necessarily see them well, could you?
well enough to make a diagnosis.
Now you said that you ordered an MRI as well. What does that show?
Once again, more levels.
Objection, Your Honor, unfair extrapolation.
Your Honor, she's an expert. She knows what an MRI shows. How is this unfair extrapolation? It doesn't help or hinder either side.
Is it part of the fact background?
Oh,
I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Robertson, were you aware that an MRI shows blood flow, tumors, and tissue damage?
Yes, I'd be aware of it.
And did you suspect any of those in the case of Jamie?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Did you suspect any tissue damage, problems with blood flow, or tumors in the case of Jamie?
No, I did not.
And a CAT scan, were you aware that that shows trauma, stroke, and hemorrhages?
Yes.
Did you suspect any of that in Jamie's case?
objection, Your Honor, unfair extrapolation.
Your Honor, she already said that she was aware of it. We moved on to the next question of whether or not she suspected that in Jamie's case, which she's fully available to answer.
And do you have a citation to the documents that would show that that's part of the background in this case?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, then I'm going to sustain the objection.
Thank you. Dr. Robertson, isn't it true that you stated that there's a shortage of doctors in your field?
Yes, but I'm not one of them. I love my job.
Yes or no, you've stated that a lot of people in your profession are getting increasingly frustrated. I remind you that was a yes or no question.
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant.
Response, Your Honor, it's very relevant to the case whether or not doctors in her field are frustrated or not. Because if she indeed is frustrated, then that could cause problems with her diagnosis of Jamie Anderson.
Well, unless it relates to her level of frustration, I agree that it is irrelevant. If you want to ask her about her own personal frustration level with this type of work, that would be relevant.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Dr. Robertson, isn't it true that you let Jamie diagnose why she was having those symptoms? The
No.
cause of which, not the actual disorder.
No, I made my diagnosis on what I believe and know that he is suffering from.
Your Honor, at this time, I wish to approach the witness with their affidavit. That's the record you want to show in the closing counsel. May I approach you?
Yes, you may.
Would you please read to yourself page 79, line 24? Do you understand what you just read?
Yes.
Now, isn't it true, Dr. Robertson, that you let Jamie diagnose what was causing her symptoms? Not the diagnosis, but the cause.
I took her opinion into effect when making my diagnosis, but she did not solely say this is what it's from, and I did not make that assumption.
Did you agree wholly with her opinion?
Yes, after looking into the details, she is my client. I need to take
Your
her
Honor, may I
attributions
approach
going
you
around.
with the document?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Dr. Robertson, Jamie is suffering from generalized anxiety disorder, correct?
Yes.
Is she suffering from anything else?
Not at this time. No, he's not.
Your Honor, at this time, I wish to approach the witness with proposed exhibits 9 of the record showing and closing counsel. portray?
Yes, you may.
Oh, you have it. Dr. Robertson, would you please read the last sentence of number 2, present conditions? What do you say Jamie Anderson was experiencing?
Jamie Anderson was experiencing a panic attack, a symptom of generalized anxiety disorder.
And what are symptoms of panic attacks?
Shortness of breath, insomnia. There are many different symptoms of panic attacks.
And were you aware that panic attacks are a different disorder entirely from generalized anxiety disorder?
They are in their own, but they are also a part of generalized anxiety disorder.
May I retrieve my document now?
Yes, you may.
Dr. Robertson, what was prescribed to Jamie Anderson?
I prescribed her with Lamprox.
And what else?
I prescribed her to see a therapist as well.
In fact, psychotherapy, correct?
Yes.
What's the guiding principle of psychotherapy?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question?
Isn't it true that the guiding principle of psychotherapy is that the patient's own reactions are what count and not the actual environment around her?
Yes, in a way.
Dr. Robertson, how long was it until Jamie Anderson chose to discontinue her therapy?
I can't be sure of the exact date, but it wasn't a very lengthy amount of time.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, who all in Jamie's family do you treat?
Her entire family, him and his parents as well.
So don't you think that you would know the issues that are going on in the family?
Yes, I would know them very well.
Jamie would tell you that, correct?
Yes, she would. I've been his family doctor since he was 6 years old.
So by your medical record that you made up of Jamie, are you confident with what you put on there?
Yes, I am very confident in what I put on there is the correct information.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor, for the question.
Thank you. Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Robertson, you said that you were very confident that you know all facets of Jamie Anderson's life, correct?
I said I was very confident in the information in which I displayed on the medical record.
Which would include the environmental stressors?
Not all of them, but the ones relevant to the situation we are in.
Now, a relevant environmental stressor that may cause generalized anxiety disorder is abuse, correct?
It's not relevant in this case.
Why not?
Not by the
Objection
parent.
beyond the scope, Your Honor.
Response, Your Honor. She asked if she would know everything that would cause this problem in Jamie Anderson's life. This is one of those possible causes of the problem.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Is abuse one of the environmental stressors that could have caused the generalized anxiety disorder?
Could have.
And why do you say it's not relevant?
Because we are here for cyberstalking. I wouldn't choose abuse as my word for cyberstalking.
But if the abuse caused the cyberstalking if the abuse caused the GAD instead of the cyberstalking, it would be relevant, correct?
Yes, but it is not the cause, therefore it is not relevant.
Now, yes or no, Jamie Anderson was experiencing extreme weight loss when you saw her.
Yes, he had
And
lost
yes or
13
no,
pounds.
you have treated her for a broken nose.
That was many,
Is that
many
a
years
yes?
ago.
And no, it was not. Excuse me, Your Honor. May I approach the witness with her affidavit?
Yes, you may.
What happens? Dr. Robertson. Is that a yes, you treated her for a broken nose?
A long time ago from a soccer ball, yes.
And so, no one can be abused for a long time?
I'm sorry, can you please?
Objection, irrelevance?
Response, Your Honor, it is possible that Jamie Anderson suffered a broken nose from abuse from her parents, not a soccer ball, which would be a valid excuse that a doctor would readily agree. It is possible she was being abused for many years and the doctor would have no idea.
We can't deal in possibilities here. If this witness is aware of something factually that occurred and has a diagnosis as to how that occurred, that would be relevant. If it's speculative, then that would be an improper question.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, doctor. May you call your next witness?
Plaintiff would like to call Jamie Anderson to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully conform to the rules of the mock trial tournament?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Please state your name for the court.
Jamie Anderson.
How old are you, Jamie?
I'm 19.
And what school did you attend in 2010?
Clearwater High School.
Could you tell us a little bit about your academic career?
Yes. I was a 4.0 student. I was in line for the valedictorian spot, and I was eligible for the Gugel Scholarship.
How important was this scholarship to you?
It was very important. There was a school of my dreams, and I really want to get into it, but I didn't have enough money, so I was really counting on that scholarship.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench with what has been marked Exhibit 7?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
No objections.
Thank you.
Could you please identify this document?
Yes, it's my high school transcripts,
And what academic information does it have on it?
my GPA, and my grades.
Over what time span does it cover?
2006 to 2010, my 4 years there.
Your Honor, we now move that Exhibit 7 be entered into evidence.
Okay, there being no objections, that will be received as marked.
Can you tell us a little bit about your grades over your high school career?
Yes, I had a 4.0 the first 3 years, and at the end, I had a 4.0 at the beginning, but due to the, around the third and fourth marking period, there was some issues, and it dropped to 3.3.
How big was that drop in your grade?
Very, very big.
Why exactly did it drop around that time period?
I started receiving harassing emails on a chat room.
Who do you believe was involved with these emails and messages?
Taylor Williams.
Were you familiar with Taylor Williams before this?
Yes, we went to school together since middle school.
Did you have any issues with Taylor in the past?
Yes, there was an incident at a bus stop when we were in middle school, and him and his friends had a water bottle, and they said it contained some chemicals, and they spilled it on me. And I was really scared, so I reacted.
What was Taylor's reaction to that?
He just kind of laughed and brushed it off like it was no big deal.
Did you have any other past issues with Taylor?
Yes, on March 8th in the cafeteria, me and my friend Casey were walking, and he was pointing and laughing, and then he said, "Jam, you better watch what you eat. You may not be able to get away as fast next time."
Who do you believe that she was referring to when she said jam?
Obviously me. My username was Jam, and my name's Jamie, so it was pretty easy to get that one.
So referring back to the cyberstalking incident, how exactly did it take place? Like, where did it take place?
It took place online at the Clearwater School chat rooms.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with Exhibits 1, 2, 3, and 4, which have already been entered into evidence?
You may.
Could you briefly just identify and say how you're familiar with these?
There are chat room excerpts from the chat room on March 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, where I had conversations with some of the people in the chat rooms.
So when did you start seeing disturbing comments on this chat room?
On March 8th.
Who were they made by?
The first one was Fatal Flaw.
What do you know about Fatal Flaw?
I know it was Taylor's username in the 2009 school year.
What did he say that day that was upsetting to you?
Jams in the window. Exercise all you want, my friend. You won't be able to run fast enough.
How did you feel about this comment?
I was startled and kind of shooken. It was very strange.
So did these comments continue after this day?
Yes, for a few more days.
When was the next day?
March 10th.
Did Fatal Flaw make any kind of comment that day?
Yes, we were speaking of how I was on color guard the past year, and he said, speaking of color, Jammin's been seen wearing school colors all week. Be careful. Water bottles, Sideline bottles, they don't always contain water. They can be deadly.
How'd you feel after this?
Objection, Your Honor, prejudicial and probative.
The witness is just giving their opinion on what happened during the course of the chat room dialogue.
It is a feeling, it is not a fact, and thus makes it more prejudicial and probative.
I'll sustain that. You can rephrase your question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I will move on, Your Honor. Was anyone with you when you participated in these chat rooms?
Yes, my friend Casey.
What kind of reaction did Casey have to these?
She was shocked, just like a few other people in the chat rooms, and it was just a very strange comment.
So did these comments continue further?
Yes, to March 11th.
So what was said that day?
On March 11th, there was a conversation about how criminals use fear to control their victims, and Shockwave said, "Wonder if anyone our age would handle a situation well, would be interested to try and create this atmosphere."
Who's Shockwave?
Taylor Williams.
All right. So did Fatal Flaw say anything that day?
No, he did not.
All right. Did these comments go on any further?
Yes, to March 12th.
All right. What was said that day that was upsetting to you?
This one was by Shockwave. Jammin, can you come out of your two-story floor roost and play?
So after reading all of these, how did you feel after all of these comments?
Objection, Your Honor, prejudicial and probative.
Yet again, the witness is just saying how he felt after hearing all of these comments. He's well aware of his feelings, and I believe the jury has the right to be exposed to what Jamie felt during that time period.
If it's in terms of a physical reaction or reaction to this that may be consistent with the GAD that we've been talking about, I'll let him testify to that. Otherwise, the objection would be sustained, but you may proceed in that area.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So, did you acquire any symptoms after?
Yes, after this, I started to have panic attacks, and I couldn't sleep, and I had nightmares, and I always had a feeling of anxiety, and I was like looking over my shoulder, and I was scared for my well-being.
Were there any other messages sent to you besides in the chat room?
Yes, on March 13th, there was an email sent to my email account with a link to an MSpace page.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with Exhibit 5, which has already been admitted into evidence?
Yes, you may.
Objection, Your Honor, has not been entered into evidence.
The email was entered by Officer Chris Hopp.
No, it was not.
It was not?
Okay, then maybe you want to have me take a look at it first, and then
All right.
you can. Thank you.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please identify this document?
It's an email, and the subject was called fear.
Was it sent directly to you?
Yes.
Could you please, Your Honor, we now move that Exhibit
5.
5 be entered into evidence.
No objection, Your
Okay,
Honor.
very well. That exhibit is submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Could you please read what was sent to you on that email?
Yes. FF may lose control at any time. Longs to test your control. How long will you last, my Jammin' friend? If you're afraid, you better stay locked up in your two-story roost and not go out and play. You could be sorry, you could be dead.
So was this message basically just like all of the other threatening comments that you saw in the chat room?
Yes.
So ultimately, how has this all affected your physical well-being?
It has crushed my mental state. It has made me very scared and leery. It's made my GPA drop, and I've lost a scholarship, and it's ruined a lot of my life plans.
I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. You may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, can I ask how much time I have for cross-examination?
You have 3 minutes and 58 seconds.
Thank you. Jamie, what is your nickname?
Jammin',
And
Or Jam.
who calls it? Who calls you it?
my friends?
And so they know you by it.
Yes.
Do you think it was wise to pick an anonymous username that everybody knows and calls you by?
At the time, I thought it was, but now looking back, it's kind of silly that I did that. But
And you know that to send and receive an email, you hand out your address, right? Your email address.
yes,
And was that also wise to make your email address and your username both the same, knowing that you hand out your email address and all your friends call you by your nickname?
no,
And you talked about the lunchroom incident
yes, I did.
when Taylor shouted your username across the lunchroom, correct?
Yes.
Who all was in the lunchroom?
Obviously, students, it was a lunchroom.
Right, so several people heard your username and your email.
I suppose, maybe just the people around the area.
So, anybody could have directed the email towards you, now knowing your email and your username.
Possibly, but not likely.
Not likely that anybody heard it.
That could have been anyone else. We had a past, and Taylor knew who I was, and it was the same comments made by his username.
And anybody in the chat room can review all the chats, correct?
Sure.
So, anybody who could have pulled words from, say, Fatal Flaw, or my defendant Taylor, anybody in the chat room could have pulled their words, yes or no?
It's possible.
And you have or had an MSpace page, correct?
Yes,
And the photo that you saw on the other MSpace page was on it, correct?
yes,
And is it true that anybody could have downloaded that MSpace page?
it's possible.
And anybody who would have seen this page could have known where your room is, correct?
Possibly.
And the threats directed, some of them mentioned the window and how you were exercising, yes?
Yes,
Don't you live only a few blocks from the high school?
I do.
And you rarely close your drapes, correct?
I tend not to.
So anyone from the high school who could have walked by knew where your room was, and anybody who's seen your MSpace page with the photo knew where your room was?
Possibly.
So the post from Fatal Flaw could have been from anybody who saw that or knew where your room was.
It could have been, but highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely that anybody saw it, or highly unlikely that.
Anyone else could have wrote it.
And on March 11th, after calling Taylor a freak, what did she respond?
What was the date? Sorry.
March 11th.
Thanks for the compliment. Jam is full of fear. Would make a great experiment.
And you recall her making another post about keeping your friends close, correct?
Yes.
Is it in it?
No, but it's on March 12th.
How would it be, can you show me where on March 12th?
Sorry about that. Yep.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Anything additional?
No, Your Honor, the plaintiff now rests.
Okay, thank you. Give me a step down.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're ready to proceed with the case for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. We'd now like to call Taylor Williams to the scene.
Thank you. If you'll step to the side and be sworn by the bailiff.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully conform to the rules of the mock trial tournament?
Yes.
Have a seat.
Taylor, can you please state your name, spelling the last for the record of the court?
Taylor Williams, Williams.
And how old are you?
I'm 18 years old.
And where did you graduate high school?
I graduated from Clearwater High School
When?
last spring,
And,
last fall.
and what did you rank at the end of the year?
I think I ranked 13.
And now that you're done with high school, what do you plan on doing?
I plan to go to college. I want to major in psychology and minor in law enforcement.
And tell me about your major.
I plan to major in psychology because I'm really interested in how a victim survives a traumatic event, their physical, mental, emotional strengths, and such like that. I think studying this will really impact the world someday.
Have you always been interested in this field?
Yes.
How do you express your interest for this?
The last 2 years has been a lot easier for me to express this. I use the school chat room to speak academically about that subject.
And how do you access the school chat room?
Because I don't have an internet accessible computer at home, I use the school lab or the library downtown.
And tell me about the chat room. How does it work?
Well, at the beginning of each year, you have to choose a username and password, and you have to sign a waiver saying that you will remain anonymous and that if panicked, you will push the panic button.
And what is your username?
My username is Shockwave.
Have you accessed this chat room during your junior year?
Yes, it's Fatal Flaw.
Thank you. And did it carry over?
It's not supposed to, but the school technology staff really screwed up and they must not have deleted it because somebody ended up stealing my identity.
At this time, I would like to, just kidding. What do you, and is there any other way that this could have reoccurred?
Well, like I said, someone stole my identity because I wrote my username and password in an English book so I could remember it my junior year.
Thank you. At this time, Your Honor, I would like to approach the witness with proposed Exhibit 8. Let the record show showing opposing counsel.
No objection.
Thank you.
And Taylor, what is this?
This is the copy of the page of the English book.
And is it authentic to your knowledge?
Yes.
Let the record show the document's authenticity has been stipulated.
Very well.
Thank you. And where was this book?
It was in the school library for research purposes, so anybody could have saw it actually.
So anybody could have had your username,
Yes.
and anybody could have stopped, and who could have stopped you?
Anybody who's seen that book?
Since someone else stole your junior pseudonym, have you experienced them in the chat room with you?
Yes.
And what happened?
Well, I logged on March 10th, and I logged on just as they were logging off, and I was rather shocked to see that they were on. And someone asked me once if I even knew them or was aware of them. I said that I was aware of flaw.
What did you mean by that?
I meant that I was aware of a flaw that let that username be used again.
And when is the next time you logged on?
March 11th.
Tell me about March 11th.
On March 11th, a lot of students were discussing a history topic about crime and criminals. Because I plan to minor in law enforcement, I interjected my philosophy how some criminals use fear to control people.
Then what?
After that, I also mentioned that it would be amazing to study such effects of that because, like I said, I also plan to major in psychology. I then mentioned that it would make a great experiment
to study such a thing, not as in making an experiment. At this time, Your Honor, I would like to approach the witness to Exhibit 3.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to direct your attention now to your post at 406. Can you please read that for us?
It would be amazing to study pain and suffering. Doctors must do it all the time. Long-term effects of suffering could produce some interesting data. Volunteers? Hey, Jam, you still here?
And what did you mean by that?
Jamie had been logged into the chat room for almost 20 minutes without saying anything at all. I had two different statements. They were in the same post, but I was just making sure Jamie was still in the room, or in the chat room.
And can you please read the time she logged on?
Jamie logged on at 3:50.
And what was her first post?
Her first post wasn't until 4:08.
After that, then what did you do?
Jamie said she was just listening, so I continued talking about my subject, and Jamie actually called me a freak. I got really defensive. I said thanks for the compliment. I didn't find it complimenting at all, but I didn't want her to know I was upset, and I actually made a mistake and said that she would make a great experiment. I was just being defensive.
And when is the next time you logged on?
March 12th.
And what happened March 12th?
March 12th, as soon as Jamie logged on, I asked her to come out of her second floor roost and play, and all I meant was for her to join the conversation, considering the day before she'd been logged in for almost 20 minutes without saying anything. I was just trying to get her involved in the conversation as soon as she logged on.
Taylor, are any of your posts threatening?
I don't believe so.
So why are you here today?
I'm really not sure why I'm here today.
Is there any other inconsistencies?
The day the email was made, I was actually delivering food for the Chinese restaurant I work for, so I couldn't have made the email. And on March 11th, I think Fatal Flaw and I were logged in at the same time. It would have been rather obvious if I was jumping back and forth between computers. March 12th, I had an interview with Sensei Cliff. I couldn't have made the other posts.
And so why do you think Jamie targeted you?
I'm really not sure. I guess it's because of our past. I thought, or maybe the scholarship. I'm not really sure.
And what happened in your past?
We used to be friends in elementary school. We used to play together, and then we just drifted apart in middle school.
What happened in middle school?
At the bus stop, my friend and I were pretending we had chemicals in a water bottle. We were messing around, and I pushed her, and the water accidentally spilled all over Jamie's arm. She didn't know it was water, and she became hysterical.
Is this the only incident you've had with Jamie?
No, my junior year, I got to do a presentation on Jack the Ripper. I guess Jamie was upset because she didn't get the same opportunity to do so. In the middle of my presentation, she really walked out right in the middle of it, and I guess it's because she was jealous. I didn't think it was a big deal.
And why did you take this extra credit?
I just wanted to use it because it let me explore my interests in the class. I didn't think anything else in the class let me do that.
And you talked about a scholarship. What is this scholarship?
It's called the Google Scholarship. It's $15,000 for 4 years.
And who all is in the room?
Everybody's in the running for the scholarship, but I guess the main competition was in the top 10.
Was anybody else questioned?
No, just me.
And Taylor, over the past week and through the charges you've put through, are you a cyber stalker?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. No more questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. So you're not attending school at the moment, correct?
No.
But you're planning on attending college sometime soon, right?
Yes.
And you'll now be able to afford that tuition with the aid packages you've been offered, right?
Yes.
So you can reasonably say that tuition for college is somewhat of an issue for you, right?
Yes.
So that Gugel scholarship, it would have really helped you out with college tuition, wouldn't it have?
Yes, it would have helped everyone.
And you were quite friendly with Sensei Cliff, the computer instructor, correct?
In a professional way, yes.
And you were in the school computer labs often late after hours.
Yes, I didn't have an internet accessible computer at home.
And you posted quite a bit on the school's chat rooms, right?
Yes.
Your official username during senior year was Shockwave, right?
That was my only username, yes.
And your password was named after Jack the Ripper, right?
Yep.
And you even opted to do an extra credit report on Jack the Ripper during high school, probably junior year?
Yes.
And Jack the Ripper is famous, or rather infamous, for being a serial killer, right?
Yes.
So going back to the chat rooms, you said that your postings were purely academic, correct?
Yes.
And your self-declared academic interests are fear and victimization, correct?
Yes.
So now you're alleging that you did not post under the username Fatal Flaw, at least during the 2010 school year, right?
I did not post under Fatal Flaw my senior year.
But as you said earlier, you were registered under Fatal Flaw for the 2009 school year.
Yes.
So when you were made aware that someone had allegedly used that name for the 2010 school year, you didn't contact anybody or report this, did you?
No, anybody could have reused the username if they wish, considering we choose a new one at the beginning of every year. I was suspicious about it at the time, but I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't know that they were using it to threaten Jamie.
Well, you even defended this username in the chat rooms, didn't you?
I did not defend them.
Your Honor, may I please approach the witness with Exhibit 2?
Yes, you may.
Could you please read to yourself quietly this part?
Okay.
So, are you sure you never defended Fatal Flaw?
I'm positive I didn't defend Fatal Flaw. The problem with chat room excerpts and text messages is they don't have any emotion behind them. Everything can be taken out of context.
But it is true that you did say, after a comment that Fatal Flaw made, you said, no harm done to everybody else in the chat room, no harm done, Fatal Flaw was just participating in some gentle ribbing, correct?
No, I said there's nothing wrong with some gentle ribbing. I was trying to move the conversation along.
Yes, all right, thank you. So, you've had prior issues with Jamie, right?
I wouldn't say issues.
The incident in middle school?
That was an accident. I didn't mean to, or my friend didn't mean to spill it. And that was in middle school.
Did you find the fact that Jamie had thought that poisonous chemicals were spilled on her, did you find that hilarious?
No, I was in middle school and I laughed. Regrettably, it was a bad idea. It ruined our friendship completely.
So, just to wrap this up, you've said that you actually conducted research in your area of interest, of course, that you hope will be useful one day, right?
Yes.
And just to clarify, your specific area of interest is victims of traumatic events, correct?
Correct.
Traumatic events such as stalking?
I guess that could be used as one, but I never conducted any experience myself.
No further questions.
Can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Were you Fatal Flaw your senior year?
No.
And over the course of your major, what do you want your major to do?
I want to impact the world one day because I think that if you were to get in the mind of a victim, you can further get into the mind of a criminal, and I think that would help the world.
And Taylor, are you a cyber stalker?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Anything additional?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You may step down. Call your
Would
next
like to
witness.
call Pat Clifford to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. You promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully conform to the rules of the mock trial tournament? Please be seated.
Bailiff, how much time do I have left?
That's plenty of time. You're only, you have 16 minutes. No, wait. You are at, you're only at 8 minutes right now. You have 25 minutes allotted.
Thank you. Please state your name, spelling the last for the purpose of the court.
Pat Clifford, Clifford.
What is your current career
I have my own business, Sensational Technology.
and your previous career?
I was a computer instructor at Clearwater High School
How long?
for about 2 years.
What sort of training have you received that qualifies you for this career?
I have a degree in computer
computer engineering and a minor in computer analysis.
How do you feel about the time that you spent at CHS?
I felt I had a lot of accomplishments.
What sort of accomplishments?
When I first came in, I got a dozen or so more computers for students that didn't have use, who didn't have access to internet at their houses, and I also set up a school chat room.
How many computers would you say you had running?
Roughly about 45, depending on how many were running at the time we were working.
Where were they all located?
In the school lab and library.
What types of access were the students granted of these computers?
There was 2 types of access. There was regular internet and network access.
And the difference?
Network you had to sign in because it was underneath the school. Internet you did not have to sign into.
How did you sign into the network access?
With a username and password.
And how did you get these usernames and passwords?
You made them yourselves, and with creating these yourselves, you signed an agreement.
What was in this agreement?
In the agreement there was a few things. The most important thing was that if you felt threatened or uncomfortable at any time, you would push a red button, and that you were also to rename underneath a pseudonym, not giving away your identity.
Which Jamie did not do.
No, she did not.
How did you become involved in this case?
I was the computer instructor, and I am here due to Jamie not pushing the red button. Everything could have been solved if she would have.
When did you first become aware?
March 8th.
What happened?
On March 8th, I checked the chat room excerpts and read them over. I found nothing that was remotely inappropriate. Nothing was worse than what I hear in the school hallways and what students direct to each other. And I also found that Taylor Williams' previous name from the previous year was Fatal Flaw.
What other information did you give to Chris Hop?
I told Chris Hop that I had seen Taylor Williams in the lab the entire week. She was there the entire week. And I also found that Fatal Flaw and Shockwave had reported from all lab computers except for on March 8th where Fatal Flaw reported from the library. And Jamie had reported from all non-school computers.
Where was Taylor Williams on Monday?
Taylor Williams was in an interview with me.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with Exhibit 1?
Yes, you may.
Is already been entered in evidence. Who of the 3 pseudonyms involved in this are signed in this day?
On March 8th,
Yes.
Jamin at Clearwater High School, Fatal Flaw, and Southern Bell.
Shockwave is not signed in?
No,
Taylor Williams is not signed in at all?
no, not at all.
May I retrieve the document?
Yes, you may.
Have you ever had any previous incidents like this?
Yes, there's been one very similar. There had been somebody who felt that they were being threatened. They pushed the red button, which was the right thing to do. Everything was solved. And the computers were shut down for more than 5 to 10 minutes, and I found out why they were feeling uncomfortable and the person that was sending inappropriate messages.
And what were the repercussions of this incident?
The chat room was only shut down for 5 to 10 minutes.
It was not permanently shut down?
No, not at all.
And you found out who the person doing this was?
Yes, it was very easy.
So what should Jamie have done in this incident?
Obviously pushed the red button.
Thank you. And this witness to cross-examination.
Thank you.
You trusted Taylor Williams, didn't you?
Yes, she was a good
You
student.
trusted Taylor Williams so much. In fact,
Objection,
that
Your
you-
Honor. The counsel just interrupted my witness.
Good tune.
Bailiff? Okay, please proceed.
You trusted Taylor Williams so much that in fact you allowed Taylor Williams to stay in the computer lab beyond hours without adult supervision, didn't you?
Your Honor, counsel still did not let my witness finish her first question. She interrupted her.
There have been multiple interruptions. I'm going to let her try to answer this one, and then we'll proceed from there.
Thank you.
you. Yes.
In fact, you trusted Taylor Williams so much that you often allowed Taylor to be in the computer lab without adult supervision.
Yes.
And where he could be in this computer lab and no one knew what he was doing.
You said Taylor Williams was allowed in the room. Taylor Williams is a she. But yes,
Well, she was allowed to.
yes, she would
Thank
not
you.
do that.
It's a yes or no question. Please answer yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. And because you allowed her in the room, she could have been doing anything.
No,
Yes or no?
not anything.
Well, do you know what she was doing in there?
Yes, she was working on homework and it was close to exam time.
But she had
and she
access to the computer system, yes or no?
No.
Well, but you weren't there to monitor her, were you?
No, I was not.
So
There was a
since you weren't there to monitor her.
Objection,
therefore you
Your
have no
Honor.
idea.
Opposing counsel is using an argumentative tone with my witness and keeps interrupting her.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may proceed.
Okay. And you, because you were not there, you do not know, yes or no, what she was doing.
I have some idea. Yes, I do.
You have some idea, but you don't know what she was doing.
Yes, I know what she was doing.
Then she was supposedly on the computers, yes or no?
She was on the computers, yes.
So, supposedly, but you don't know what she was doing.
She told me what she
Objection, Your
was.
Honor, asked and answered repeatedly.
Okay, I'll sustain that. We can move along.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Shockwave was in fact Taylor Williams, correct?
Yes.
But in these chat rooms, Shockwave also made references to things that Fatal Flaw was saying to Jamie Anderson. Yes or no?
No.
So the experiment that Shockwave speaks of was not referenced by Fatal Flaw?
Shockwave never created a full experiment, as she said.
Well, but she did reference an experiment, correct?
Yes.
So therefore, this experiment was in fact referenced, the very first question I asked you that you did not answer. So yes.
Yes.
Okay. And the school screen names were supposedly automatically deleted.
Yes, they were deleted.
Okay. But for some odd reason, Fatal Flaws was not deleted. In fact, it was deleted, but it was reactivated. Isn't that correct?
I know, it's odd. It wasn't deleted. This
I
is.
know. Isn't that odd?
Yes,
it's
it
odd
is.
that Taylor Williams was in the computer lab where she could have been doing anything. and
Objection,
it
Your
got-
Honor. The opposing counsel is badgering my witness and using a very inappropriate tone.
Now, I'm going to let her proceed.
Thank you.
So once again, it's odd that this happened when Taylor Williams was there without your supervision, which you were the adult who were supposed to be monitoring it.
I
Yes
did
or no?
monitor, and I don't believe I can answer this question in a yes or no fashion.
I do believe you can. It's a yes or no question. It's were you there monitoring to know what she was doing in the lab where she could have activated it? So yes or no.
Could you please repeat the question?
Were you in the computer lab to monitor what Taylor Williams was doing? Therefore, what Taylor Williams was doing, that's a no question. Yes or no question?
During school?
No, during the time that you allowed her in the computer lab.
No, I was not there.
So you don't know if she reactivated her old screen name because you weren't there to monitor. Yes or no?
She couldn't have.
She couldn't have?
She
couldn't
was.
have because you were there monitoring her, correct?
No, I let
You
her.
weren't there, thank you. No questions?
Redirect.
What did your job entail during your after-school monitoring?
I monitored the children and fixed computers.
Were you always in your office?
No, I was in between the library and lab
And Taylor Williams was in the lab all the time?
all the time.
Was Taylor Williams granted access to your office during after-school hours?
Not my official office, but to the lab, yes, she was.
Where were the accounts registered at?
They were on my computer in my room.
And Taylor had no access to this after school?
No access.
Thank you, no further questions.
Thank you. You recross?
Yes.
And once again, you weren't there to monitor where Taylor was,
She was in the lab.
but you were there to monitor her in the lab, correct? No, you weren't.
Okay, no.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay, thank you. You may sit down. You may call your next witness for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Defense wishes to call Dr. Sidney Freed to the stand, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully conform to the rules of this mock trial tournament?
I do.
Please be seated.
Sir, may I ask how much time I have for that?
You have 12 minutes.
Thank you. Dr. Freed, please state your name and occupation for the record of the court, please.
My name is Dr. Sidney Freed, and I have been a clinical psychologist for the past 17 years.
Are you qualified to be a psychologist?
I received my bachelor's degree from from Washington State University, my master's and my PhD from the University of Washington.
Your Honor, at this time, may I approach the witness with proposed exhibit 10?
Yes, you may.
I'll let the record show from the opposing counsel.
No objections, Your Honor.
Dr. Freed, what is that document?
This is my vita, which lists all of the places that I have attended school and all of the various presentations or otherwise that I have done.
To your knowledge, is it accurate?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I wish to offer into evidence proposed exhibit 10. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Okay, any objections to that exhibit?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, very well. It will be admitted into evidence then.
Thank you. What else qualifies you to be a psychologist?
I've given 3 presentations and authored 3 novels on the subject of stalking and its victims.
That's quite a list. Anything else?
In 2009, I was given the SIPL Award, an award for excellence in the understanding and treatment of stalking victims as well as the stalkers.
Your Honor, at this time, I wish to have Dr. Sidney Freed recognized as an expert in psychology of stalkers and its victims.
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, very well. The court will qualify him as an expert and allow him to give his opinion and testimony in that regard.
Thank you. May I also approach the witness with exhibits 1 through 5 and proposed exhibit 6? Like I'm showing opposing counsel.
No objections.
Very well. You may proceed.
Thank you. Dr. Freed, do you recognize the final document, exhibit 6?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is an M-space page that was, this is the M-space page that the K's email linked to, that was sent to Jamie Anderson.
To your knowledge, is it accurate?
It is the same document that I reviewed.
Your Honor, at this time, I wish to offer into evidence proposed exhibit 6. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
There being no objections, the exhibit will be admitted. That's correct. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Freed, what did you examine when you were contacted about this case?
I was given the chat room dialogues. I have reviewed the statements of both Taylor Williams and Jamie Anderson, a medical report by Dr. Robertson, as well as the K's email and this M-space page.
And what was your opinion of those documents?
None of the statements made within either the chat rooms, the K's email, or the M-space page were severe enough to be considered stalking.
Why not?
In an actual stalking scenario, a very different set of circumstances exist as opposed to what happened with the case of Jamie Anderson. In an actual stalking scenario, there would have been a prior intimate relationship between the stalker and their victim. There would have been an exposure to or threat of violence. There would have been surveillance over a period of time. And there would also the victim would also be reluctant to report the situation to authorities for fear of retaliation.
So why don't you consider this being solved?
When you contrast these facts to Jamie Anderson's case, there was no intimate relationship between him and Taylor Williams. There was no exposure or threats, or I should say direct outright threats of violence. There was no surveillance conducted. This was a very short period of time, and as the situation was reported in a week, one could not call Jamie reluctant to report the situation.
Did you interview or evaluate Jamie?
November of 2010, I performed my own evaluation of Jamie.
What were your findings?
While I agree that Jamie does have GAD, I must strongly disagree with Dr. Robertson's diagnosis of the cause.
Now, what's the difference between GAD and regular anxiety?
Regular anxiety can be a good thing. It helps you to respond appropriately in stressful situations. It becomes GAD when that anxiety becomes overbearing, overpressuring, and invasive, when it starts to affect everyday life. A person with GAD might be considered obsessive, constantly worrying about health, money, family, school issues, and the like.
How was Jamie treated for GAD?
Jamie was given a very weak sedative that, it's my professional opinion, was weak for the symptoms that Jamie was describing, as well as cognitive behavior therapy, which suggests it was Jamie's reaction to the situation that was the cause of Jamie's problems.
Now, why do you disagree with that treatment?
For one, Jamie's symptoms that he had described to me warranted a medication much stronger. And in most stalking situations, you find the victims are on antidepressants or strong sedatives. The lack of such leads me to question the sincerity of the extent of the symptoms Jamie was claiming.
Why do you question her sincerity?
I believe that Jamie was over-exaggerating the symptoms. The symptoms he was experiencing are not conclusive to an actual stalking scenario, and even for the situation which Jamie had been through, it shouldn't have caused such severe symptoms as Jamie was describing.
Why would someone do that?
Claiming to have incredibly severe symptoms would allow for much more money damages to be sustained in a lawsuit.
And were you aware of Jamie's academic career?
Jamie's grades had been a 4.0 since Jamie was in 9th grade, and although they did fall at the end of Jamie's senior year. This is, once again, not consistent with generalized anxiety disorder. A true patient of generalized anxiety disorder would actually become hyper-focused rather than a lack of focus. One would actually have expected Jamie's grades to improve rather than decline.
So what could have caused Jamie's GAD?
Jamie's generalized anxiety disorder was most likely caused by the stress of competing for the academic scholarship. It was the only environmental factor that was severe enough to cause Jamie any extreme amount of stress.
Would it be considered severe?
Jamie had high hopes for college. Jamie wanted to go to an Ivy League college and would be unable to attend without the help of this scholarship. You could say that Jamie's plans for college hinged on getting this scholarship, in which case stressful would be something of an understatement.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. You may be cross-examined.
Dr. Freed, you have said that recently you have been seeing an increasing number of patients who have been the victims of cyberstalking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to approach the witness with Exhibit 10?
You may.
Is it also correct that the works you have published dealing with stalking in the physical world or real world rather than the cyber world?
This is correct, though the elements are the same.
Is it yes or no? Is it also correct that the presentations and workshops you have presented also dealing with stalking in the physical world rather than the real?
Once again, the elements are the same.
Isn't it correct that other than the recent victims of cyber stalking you have seen in your practice, your experience and education is in cyber stalking?
My education does have some impact on the subject, but my experience was limited to the more recent cases popping up in the last few years.
So is that a yes or is that a no?
I cannot outright say yes or no.
You stated that in stalking situations, one would expect the victim to have been in a prior intimate relationship with the stalker.
That is correct.
Okay. You then go on to state that the alleged stalker in this case was a casual classmate and not someone Anderson even knew very well.
I did state that.
At the time you made this statement, were you aware that Jamie and Taylor had been friends since elementary school, lived in the same neighborhood, and played at each other's houses?
I was not aware of them having played at each other's houses. I was aware that they grew up together and that they grew close. However, I am also aware that they grew apart after middle school, and their relationship now is nothing I could consider intimate.
Okay. Are you saying that after living in the same neighborhood for at least 13 years, playing at each other's homes, going to small school together for 13 years, they aren't considered casual classmates?
I would agree that playing at each other's homes might suggest some intimacy, but none of those other factors.
But it would be considered an intimate relationship, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative. He was trying to answer her question.
No. I'm going to let him attempt to answer the question.
Thank you,
You
Your
may
Honor.
proceed.
I would agree that if they did indeed play at each other's house, that would be considered intimate. However, after reviewing their statement, I found that that relationship ended after the bus stop incident, and merely attending the same school and living in the same neighborhood is not enough foundation to say that they had an intimate relationship.
You said that you would expect to see the victim subjected to a broad variety and numerous instances of stalking activities, correct?
Yes.
Jamie was subjected to chat room threats, harassing emails, an entire web page of harassment, and at least one instant of surveillance. Is that correct?
I do not agree with all of that.
Okay. But that is 4 different types of activities, correct?
For the ones that I can agree to, the other ones I cannot even say were threatening.
Okay. But are you saying that the 4 types of harassment would be not enough?
Objection, Your Honor. He already disagreed that these were harassments, and she's asking about instances of harassment.
Clarify what your question is at this point.
But you were saying that 4 different types of harassment are not enough to constitute stalking, which he clearly admitted that he agrees with some of them, but not all of them, which more than one would be multiple.
I'll let you proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You concede that there were at least 6 instances of harassment,
Yes.
okay? You believe that 6 instances does not constitute stalking.
I do not. I disagree as to whether or not these instances were severe enough to be considered harassment.
Okay, so outside of what you believe is stalking, how many instances does it take? 6? 80?
The number would be higher.
Okay. In characterizing the cyber stalking that Jamie endured, you said, and I quote, "It was definitely not what I would describe as intrusive." Yes or no?
I did state that.
Would you agree that what one person does not find intrusive may be very intrusive to another?
I can agree with that.
Is it also correct that you stated, "It is my opinion that Jamie Anderson has not suffered the psychological injuries about which he or she complains"?
That is true.
So you agreed to a diagnosis that you may not, that you now say the subject did not have, yes or no?
That is not true. I agree that Jamie does have GAD. It is the extent of the severity of his symptoms that I disagree with.
Okay. So how many instances, again, does it take for you to consider them stalking?
I would not give an exact number.
But you said that when I replied to you was 70 or 80, that it would be a lot higher, did you not?
Not higher as compared to those two numbers, just that the number would be a generally higher number. Not in relation to those numbers. I would, if I had to give a number, I would say one in the double digits, but again, to pinpoint an exact number is, it depends mostly on the subject.
But one's opinion compared to another could be completely different, correct?
Two opinions could definitely conflict.
So what could have happened to Jamie could have caused her generalized anxiety disorder?
I do not believe so, and I base this opinion off of my evaluation of Jamie, the symptoms that were described to me, as well as Jamie's accounts of the events.
You say that you evaluated Jamie.
Yes, I did.
Did you by chance sit down and have a face-to-face conversation with Taylor?
No, I did not.
Why is that?
I was not requested to.
But don't you think that with your education and background, that to make one's assumption, you would want to meet with both parties and not just one?
After I had concluded that this was not a stalking situation, which I still stand by, I did not feel it was necessary to interview and evaluate Taylor.
So once again, yes or no? You did not meet face-to-face with Taylor?
No, I did not.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect examination of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Freed, how long have you dealt with stalkers?
Since I began my work in psychology.
How long have you dealt with cyber stalkers?
Cyber stalkers are merely another facet of stalkers. The means by which the stalking is conducted does not change the elements of the stalking. Cyber stalkers and stalkers are one and the same. The only difference is that one takes place over the internet.
So what's the difference?
There isn't one.
Was Jamie Anderson harassed?
No.
Was Jamie Anderson stalked?
No.
Was Jamie Anderson cyber stalked?
No.
Does Jamie Anderson have GAD?
Yes.
To your knowledge, does Taylor Williams have GAD?
No.
So you didn't talk to her because she didn't have the disorder, now did you? Now did she?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any additional? Okay, thank you. You may sit down.
I believe this is yours.
I believe we have heard from the last of the witnesses, correct? So both sides have rested, and are you prepared at this time to proceed to closing arguments? You are, you may do so.
Gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, I'd like to take a quick moment just to summarize today's case really quick. We have Jamie Anderson, 4.0 student, top of his class, on his way to becoming valedictorian and winning the Guzzo Scholarship, which would have allowed him to pursue his dream of going to an Ivy League college. But Jamie wasn't the only one who needed that scholarship money. Taylor Williams, a jealous teenage girl, decided that she would conduct a little experiment on Jamie by stalking him and harassing him on multiple occasions. Jamie then proceeded to develop a general anxiety disorder. His grades then proceeded to drop, and he dropped out of the running for the Gugel Scholarship. So what happened to Jamie's dreams after that? Well, those were out the window by then. The defense wants you to believe a little something different today. They want you to believe that it's a coincidence, the fact that Jamie has had prior issues with Taylor. They also want you to believe the fact that Taylor's old username, Fatal Flaw, is associated in this whole mess. They want you to believe that that is also just a coincidence. And finally, they also want you to believe that it's just a coincidence. Oh, excuse me. They want you also to believe that it is a coincidence that at the same time that Jamie's grades, mental health, and physical well-being declined, that was at the same time as the cyber stalking incident. They want you to believe that in no way did they have correlation, even though they happened at exactly the same time. But we, the prosecution, have proved to you 4 things today that will prove you otherwise, that will show you otherwise, rather. Number 1, Taylor Williams is Fatal Flaw. Number 2, Jamie received at least 2 electronic messages from Fatal Flaw. 3, that these harassing messages were specifically directed towards Jamie. And 4, Jamie had the reaction of any other reasonable person. Now let's start with the first element of today's case. Taylor Williams is the only person who could have been Fatal Flaw. If you recall, Taylor was registered under the username Fatal Flaw for the 2009 school year. Now Pat Clifford, the computer instructor, said that all usernames are deactivated at the end of each school year. So, for that username to be reactivated again, they need to have somebody to actually get into the computer system and reactivate it. But the only person who would have had the complete access to the computer system, thus the capability to reactivate this account, would have been Pat Clifford, the computer instructor, right? Wrong. Pat, on several occasions, left Taylor in the computer lab alone, unsupervised, where Taylor had the perfect opportunity to get into the computer system and reactivate the account. Now, number 2, we've proven to you that Jamie received at least 2 messages from Fatal Flaw. The proof is all in the evidence. You've seen the disturbing chat room comments and the email. Number 3, these messages were specifically directed towards Jamie. Well, the fact that all of these comments in the email referenced Jamie's username indicates that it was in fact directed towards Jamie, and the email was sent directly to his email account. Now, number 4, Jamie had the reaction of any other reasonable person. You've heard about his best friend Casey's reaction and the reaction of the others in the chat room. They were all absolutely shocked at what Taylor said in that chat room. They weren't even the ones being stalked, and they still had a certain fear growing within them. So where does this all leave Jamie Anderson? Jamie has to live with an anxiety disorder for the rest of his life. He's suffered from insomnia, severe emotional distress, and heart palpitations, among many other things. The only thing he wants at this point is closure. And I'm confident, we the prosecution are confident, that using your good common sense and good judgment, you will give Jamie the closure he needs by finding Taylor Williams guilty of cyberstalking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
May it please the court and members of the jury. Today we witnessed exactly what the plaintiff wanted to, a percentile. We call this a preponderance of the evidence, a weighing of the scales. This is supposed to show that the evidence was to link my defendant to Fatal Flaw. They did not do that. There was no way that those two were connected, that no one else could have connected them. Anyone could have seen the posts. It was pulled together from the posts and from the email. It could have been anybody. Anybody saw her room Anybody could have downloaded the photo. Anybody could have heard her name shouted through the lunchroom. And she all testifies to that. He all testifies to this, excuse me. We heard from Taylor, who admittedly said she wrote her name and her ID and her password in a book. Mistakenly, this is identity theft. Anybody could have went through the library, and anybody could have pulled her name from the book. This is not her. But, as you've also heard, you heard from Pat Clifford, who is a professional friend of the defendant, Taylor Williams. And she says that she's been working with computers her whole life. She has her own company. She built half the computers in the school. She knows how they work. And as a professional friend, she could leave Taylor in the lab responsibly with no access to her office or to her own personal computer. There's no way that fatal flaw could have reoccurred because Pat herself deleted the names. It's impossible to think that a student outsmarted a computer genius. It's unthinkable. And then you heard from Dr. Sidney Freed, which agrees, yes, she does have, yes, he does have GAD, but it is not from cyberstalking, which he's an expert in. He knows his stuff. And he says that for it to occur, there was several environmental factors that were not taken into place, and that the cyberstalking did not come from Taylor. You heard Jamie say that these threats could have come from no one else. Well, we've already pointed out that they did come from someone else, anybody else. There's no proof linking them together. And by a preponderance of the evidence, it does not weigh in the plaintiff's favor. And then you heard from Chris Hopp, who questioned, first you heard from Chris Hopp. And he did not question any other students. There are top 10 running for the Google Scholarship with the same motive, that were in the same rankings, and none of them are here today except Taylor. She was targeted. She was picked out because it was convenient. It was convenient for Jamie to pick her. And then you heard from Dr. Marty Robertson, who did not add all the factors. There's the scholarship, which could put a harsh stress factor. There are problems at home that may or may not have been mentioned that were not taken into place. And also, there was the big move, going from high school to college, moving from schools. These are all factors that were not taken into place that he is going through right now. It was brought to the attention that Taylor's interests, her academic interests, were a little dicey. Fear and victimization, how people react in a constricting situation. These are fields that all need to be going into. Dr. Freed himself is in cyber stalking, but that does not make him a stalker. I'm here to tell you today that Taylor is an innocent girl. She was put in a situation, she was targeted, she was picked out, under no real evidence that linked her to Fatal Flaw, who there may be a stalker, but it's not her. There's no link. She couldn't have been it. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any time reserved for a rebuttal or desire for rebuttal? No. Okay, fine. Well, thank you. That concludes all the evidence and the arguments that will be presented. If it's agreeable with our esteemed jury, perhaps we can move to a discussion of their presentation here at this time. And if you're ready to do so, we'll begin with Mr. Adair.
I thought you all did a great job. The second session, I didn't see your first session, but you appeared to be relaxed. You knew what you're talking about, and you got through your case, and I think you all did a great job. I want to focus a little bit on the cross-examinations, because there's no greater feeling for a lawyer to twist a witness around and try to get them to answer the questions you want to get them to answer but sometimes those darn witnesses don't cooperate, and they don't answer the way you want them to answer them. And Joe, you were trying to get some testimony out of the doctor about the other sort of environmental factors that could affect the GAD, and she wasn't having anything to do with it. And so at some point, you just got to say, you know what, I'll give up on that and move on. And then I didn't pay attention at the time, but you ended up calling, you were the direct for the other doctor, and that would have been an opportunity. If you wanted to get into that area, you could have had your own doctor get into that. And when you did question that doctor, you didn't get into the other environmental factors. You focused on the competition for the scholarship. So just keep in mind that sometimes witnesses don't cooperate the way that you want to do that. In that same exchange, Hope, at first on the direct exam, I thought you were a little unsure, and you were kind of moving into it, but you did great on cross-exam because you weren't letting them get to you, and that's the interplay between the plaintiff or the lawyer and the witness to do that. So that was great. And Valerie, in that same exchange, you did very well, and you were objecting, and I thought that whole interchange was encapsulated all the skills that you want to look to.
Mr. Davidson.
I'd like to especially compliment Hope and Matt on their witness performance. You were all good. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone else is bad, but I've seen Matt be a witness before, and he always hits it out of the park. You really believe he's the doctor up there, and his bearing was really good, and he basically made all of the cross-examination backfire by you just end up reinforcing things you said before. It's outstanding. I like the technique of saving the plaintiff to testify last instead of, it's sort of maybe an instinct to put your plaintiff on first and have the plaintiff, the victim, testify, but saving him for last, I think that's a good tactic to make a strong case. Get your supporting witnesses up first, and then hit home with them last. I'm not so sure that I agreed with the doing the defense closing statement right after the other one. I think that it might be a little more effective to kind of wait till it's your turn and then go ahead with the defendant's opening statement. And the reason for that is that by the time your witnesses get up, we've kind of forgotten what you said they were going to say. It's a tactical decision, of course, and sometimes it does work, but I'm not really sure in this kind of a case that did. So again, I think both teams did very, very well, and made it very real. It's an interesting topic because the cyberstalking is kind of a new area, and that was another good point that Matt, as Dr. Freed, kept re-emphasizing. Yeah, the elements are the same. I think that would be true. It's whether Jack the Ripper 100 years ago or somebody online today. So good luck moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. West.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with a lot of what Mark has said. Hope and Matt, if the two of you had any aspirations of going to law school, you might want to reconsider. Because I think you might need to look at acting school or possibly medical school. Because you had me convinced as actors playing doctors. It was excellent. It was a very entertaining exchange. And what made it so good, I mean, the testimony was top-notch. You guys really knew the material. But you had very skilled people examining you as well, which made the whole thing just play out very well. And I think we all found it to be really entertaining. You guys did a good job. So take that point to heart, because I think you might need to make or think about a career change. I have some individual comments, and as you go on in this, I hope that some of these things are helpful to you in the other rounds. I know there's only one left, and I'd like to talk about everybody, but I can't because it's getting late. Just a couple things. Chelsea, your opening. I like the way that you got away from the podium, you come to the jury box, and you try to humanize things and be friendly, and that happened on the defense side as well. But I thought the points that you wanted to make were very direct, very crisp. We knew exactly what you wanted to prove. And I like that. You had a lot of excitement, and that's important to get their attention right now, and I think you did that. I thought maybe you were a little nervous. I didn't know, but that's to be understood, obviously, in this situation. Joe, your opening, there were a couple of things, and I kind of saw this as part of the defense strategy. It's kind of like there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, and there's nothing to tie flat flaw to shock wave, and I don't think that's right. I think that, the facts of this case are that there is evidence out there that ties the two of them together. And a lot of times there's bad evidence in your case, and you need to deal with that. And to say that it doesn't exist is sometimes offensive to people after they hear all of the facts. Why do they keep saying that? As opposed to saying, well, there is some evidence, but there's another way to look at that. It's not what it appears. It's something else. And this is why it's something else. And this is why flat flaw is not shock wave. So I think you need to be a little bit careful with that. And you kind of told us there is nothing. And I kind of saw that theme throughout the defense case. And not always, but at times, just a little tidbit to sometimes be. I mean, if there was a real jury up here, those are the kinds of things that sometimes, will catch someone's ear and it can be a problem. I thought it was right to admit the exhibits of the post through the cop. In the trial that we had before, it was done through Jamie, and that seemed awkward to me. Even though she read them, she didn't retrieve them. She had probably maybe never seen them before. The cop is the one that went and did the investigation, was familiar with them. They were retrieved from the school. It just seemed to flow a lot better doing it that way. So I think that's the right approach. And then they can be shown to Jamie to refresh her recollection, or to reiterate exactly what it was said and how did this particular one affect you so severely. So I think that was the right way to do that. Joe, your examination, we've already talked about the medical testimony and all of that, which was superb. You were very aggressive, and it was you were doing a really good job of trying to get under her skin. You weren't getting very far with it, but you were trying really hard. There were times that I thought maybe you took a few liberties with the facts of the case. I'm not as familiar with this stuff as you guys are. I read all of this stuff at least twice, and I kept saying, well, maybe he's getting a little bit away from, what the real facts are by getting into issues of abuse and divorce and family problems. And I don't remember seeing any of those things in there. It was a really nice strategy. And possibly that could have brought an objection. Nobody objected. They did to some extent, but you were getting away with most of it, and it resulted in a very entertaining exchange. But as you guys know, the rules say if you get too far away from the script or the text, that can result in an objection, and that's not going to help you in terms of scoring. And on the whole aggressive thing, I think aggressive cross-examination is good, but there's a fine line there. You got to be careful. You got to be real careful. What else did I want to say? Oh, Valerie, you had the perfect opportunity to hit a home run ball. And when you see it coming, you got to hit it. Because Joe was getting a little bit, away from the facts. I went back and looked at the statement. I didn't see anything about abuse. I didn't see anything about divorce. I didn't see anything about family trouble. On redirect examination, you could have asked 4 questions. Is there any evidence of abuse in this case? No. Is there any evidence of family trouble in this case? No. Is there any evidence of this in this case? No. Is there any evidence in this case other than cyberstalking that would result in this severe emotional trauma? No. Sit down, shut up, case over.
Thank you. Sheriff.
Excellent job. You can see with the second case, as everybody grows more comfortable. I'll try to keep these quick. Chelsea, really good opening statement. Came up, stood in front of us, walked us through what you were going to say. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Joe, the exact same thing. Really good opening. I really liked you hit the point. We're under no obligation to prove anything. It's the burdens on them. Very well stated. Good witnesses. Hope, Josh, really good witnesses. My experience is in the witness chair in my career. Keep in mind as a witness, your nonverbal communication is just as important as your verbal. Takes me to Matt. You were the doctor. Great job. Sit up in the chair though. Don't lean back, sit up and smile.
No, I like that.
Well, see, I disagree, but you want the jury to like you. And I think it's a fine line between confidence and arrogant as an expert witness, and you don't want to get over that line. You're the expert, confident. Keep that in mind. But I think it was a great job. Keep up the good work.
I want to apologize for my cell phone going off. That was unforgivable. I swear I turned it on vibrate. You know, I don't know how that happened.
The worst part was the
deeply
tune.
sorry. No, that was the best part.
Yeah, well, maybe more because of the ringtone.
That was the best part. I'm very, very sorry. Very, very sorry.
I'm going to keep it short because I know we want to get to lunch, and you've got the next session here at 1:30. Your families, you got to be very proud of all of you. Your coaches should be very satisfied that you've worked hard to get to this point. It's readily apparent listening to each of you as you got up that you've worked hard, you mastered the subject material, and you were able to play the game and to get into the role. And I think you did a beautiful job. And acting is not necessarily a totally opposite of what lawyers do. I've seen a little bit of acting from time to time in the courtroom. And as a matter of fact, I'm reminded that Jeffrey Feiger had his undergrad work in theater, which may still play out sometimes. One of the aspects of a civil case, when they talk about the burden of proof and the standard of proof, well, it's preponderance is 51%, or you're halfway there, more than halfway. It's an awful hard concept to kind of explain to people. But the way I oftentimes look at it is, you filed the lawsuit, you got to prove your case. And when you're looking at that, if it comes down to the very end, you say, if it's just as likely, these are the facts, those are the facts, one side is the same as the other, then the person that has the burden of proof loses, because they haven't been able to make it seem more likely than the other. And it's a tactic that I think you parlayed very well today. You've got great talents, you've got great futures. We're going to go and let you get some lunch now, though. Okay? Thank you so much.
All right.
or he will be next season. Schultz, the carry, bounces around off tackle inside the 10 to the 8. 8, Jared Eason among tacklers that got him. Well, it's getting cold, and I guess that's appropriate for this time of year. Football weather in effect. Happy early Halloween to y'all, too. If we are here next week, it'd be a little scary, spooky, I think. Why not? The Friday before Halloween, and I think we will be. I do. I think they're going to give the Huskies a home game. We'll see. Black, keeper, up the middle, dives forward, touchdown, Big Reds. That's going to do it. If it wasn't already all she wrote, it is now. He has had success all night long on the quarterback dive play. And it's opened up the door because Madison Heights Madison all night long has bought the play action. And right when it looked like they were adjusting to this run, nope. Extra point try, it's up and it's good. It is now 41-13. Keep in mind, as far as the MAC Gold goes, this Madison Heights Madison team is not a team that is used to losing. I mean, they just don't lose at all. I said it earlier, 20-2, I think, is their last 22 games. 20-2. Oh, you see Black. Blocker ahead of him, Winslow just trying to hit anybody. So regardless of how far behind the MAC Blue, the MAC Gold might be in terms of talent, basically because the school is smaller. All the schools in that division are smaller. It's set up based on really the size of the school first and foremost, and then the talent around that size based on what divisions you're in, and then can you go on winning streaks to move up divisions like this Eagle team did from a season ago. They were MAC Silver. Now they're MAC Gold, so. But certainly a measuring stick for them to think, okay, we've gone from silver to gold. Now what do we have to do to go from gold to blue? Well, that step I think they've realized now is a lot larger than maybe meets the eye. Here we go. Kickoff. Let's get nasty. Port Huron. Kickoff taken short about the 20, 25, now 30. Good run back Monroe, 35, now 40 outside and pushed out of bounds, 44. Look out for the wall. So 10:45 to go now in the fourth. Practically all but over, 41-13. Again, the Northern Huskies were up 35-0 at the half tonight in St. Clair, so they're going to go 7-2. The Big Reds, by the looks of things, they're going to go 5-4. And it all goes back, really, to the Anchor Bay game. 17-14, they lost it late. Well, if only. They were that close to making the playoffs. I formation to the outside. He really had to run just to catch up to that football. 2, that's Tyree Monroe, incomplete. He not only had to adjust himself to catch to that ball, but he had to sprint to catch up to where the ball was in the air. But that's a pass that's not going to get you much anyway by the way it's thrown. Here you see, watch him turn it on to try and get to the ball, and he just couldn't do it. See, but even if he makes that catch because of the throw, Jared will get him. Thanks again to Jared for that DVD last week. All kinds of highlights on there. That was nice to see. The give on second down, not much, brings up third. And really, this Big Red defense has shut down Madison Heights since halftime. Clearly adjustments were made. Either that or up front they're wearing them down. And it's hard to figure when you think, because Madison Heights, they're pretty big up front. They're bigger, I think, than the Big Reds are, but Big Reds are just used to facing bigger competition. They're used to this. They're not strangers to this. I formation. Blitz try, they throw the flag. It's going to be a sack, but all for naught. LaForge jumped offside. Big Red fans, a nonchalant cheer there. They're going to call encroachment against LaForge, I think. Well, now they're saying false start offense. Okay. Well, LaForge went past the ball, but he jumped back in time, I guess. No contact was made. Sounds good to me. Brings up third down. There's the fans again. Some want on camera, some don't want on camera. That gentleman there looks amused that some don't want on camera. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Shotgun, 3rd and 12 from the 41. Crossing pattern complete. Got 13 and a first. Eason kind of goes up and then cuts left and makes it right at the sticks. That's a good job. LaForge on the stop. First down, Madison Heights. But really, you let him do this all day now. 41-13. The biggest thing is just keeping that ball in bounce. They didn't mind being on. Well, there was movement there, but they let him get away with it. Total movement up front. The guard flinched. And I know he did because I saw it from here, but 41-13, what's the point, I guess? It wasn't a huge flinch. It was more kind of a, I don't know if you call it a subtle movement even, but I do think they moved. Doesn't really matter now. Second down. So it's definitely been a great year, and it's a great year whenever the Port Huron teams win or have winning records. And this year, they're both gonna. So that's more than we can ask for as fans and I say both because I am a fan of both. I want them both to do well every year. Well, they're gonna get him with a sack this time. Hitting anybody that'll congratulate him is Alan Rapson, number 37. Happy to get a sack. And loving it. We don't say his name very often. I think he's in off the bench getting some extra time now. And we'll see how many guys Coach Mullins gets in there as backup players. Sometimes a tough call for a coach to play the young guys, but depending on the score, Coach Mullins may just do that. As I expected, it's really gotten cold here at Memorial Stadium. But again, playoff weather. And true blue football weather at this stage. It's got a playoff atmosphere on this end tonight. And I think that has to do with the fact they wanted the seniors to go out true blue winners. That they are, and it's looking more and more like indeed they're going to do that. Tyree Monroe caught that one, got 8. It'll bring up 4th down. Julian Brown, the tackle. So if I'm to award players of the game tonight, I think offensively you either say Black or Rabotham, so I'll say both of them. Well, you got to kind of say Black, really, because of all the rushing yards that he got. He's well over 100 yards rushing, so, well, the two of them, they were great tonight. Defensively, there's a lot of them you could really say. 4th down here, rolling out, throwing it right in the hands of Jared Chapman. Here's a pick to the 30. Up 35, trying to go field to field, side to side, and he does. Jared Chapman to the 40, now 45. Crosses the plane at midfield and goes out of bounds at the Madison Heights 48. Well, you just don't make that pass. That's all there is to it. Right to Jared, who says thank you very much. Going out as a senior with a big pick. Good job by 10 there. Nicholas Wallace just to avoid the pressure, but then he kind of forced that pass. Right to Jarrett. Christmas comes in October for 6. And then you see him just getting to the outside there for the rest of that play, and then he just says, I've had enough. People watching, too, don't always realize how hard it is and how difficult it is to go sideline to sidelines. You get real tired. I formation, look, the immediate give, straight up, straight down. And they ended up with the football. Well, it's good defense. Madison Heights Madison gets the ball right back to Tyree Monroe with the fumble recovery. Defensively, you could give it to the whole Big Red unit this year. They've all been good in every game. Got to stick with 13, Mike LaForge. He's had a great game today, certainly. Made some big tackles, and if you notice something, if you watch him all game long, middle linebackers don't always get the credit they deserve. He's in on most tackles. That being said, Winslow tonight defensively was terrific. Offensively speaks for himself. So he was good on both sides of the football, as we see Madison Heights get an offside. There's the Ox, and he's even got the hat on now. That hat is legendary, but he hasn't worn it yet all year. Yeah, it is cool. You actually wear something that is cool, Ox, not just the horns. That's a sign that he's cold, I guess. I don't know. Pitch out. Now the reverse, almost drops the football. Whole lot of running yards here. Monroe, 40. Scampers up to the 35, pushed out 32. Flags all over the football field. So again, a very successful tenure here for this group of seniors. It is not going to be easy to replace them. I think offensively they'll do just fine because Black is back. Robotham will be back. They've got some talent here. Winslow's going to be back too, and that's might be the biggest name coming back as far as I'm concerned with what he'll do next year. But defensively, I think it's going to be hard to replace these guys, especially in the linebackers. You talk Schultz, LaForge. There's the replay, by the way, the last play. Schultz, LaForge, Smolik, guys like that. These just aren't kids you replace every day, and certainly on the backside with Jared Chapman, the cover corner who was picked as the #1 overall player, talent-wise, in the Times Herald, the Blue Water area top 25 players earlier this season. So, and it's because of his cornerback play. But as I said earlier in the broadcast, they're really going to miss him as a backup quarterback to Black when he was hurt. Words don't describe enough what that meant to this team. Because most of these teams don't have backup quarterbacks with that kind of ability. The pass wasn't always there with him, but the rush always was. He was always a guy who'd go out and move the sticks for you, and what more can you ask out of a backup QB? So they're really going to miss 6, but again, they're going to miss a lot of guys in that linebacking core too, and certainly a lot of the defenders. So it's been a good unit for the Big Reds. Immediate give. Busts up forward, 8, but not back to the original line of scrimmage. I believe Jarrett Eason might have had that carry. Check that, Dwayne Burrows, #6. I really think, too, that the schedule gods were not smiling on the Big Reds this year. I mean, when you have your first 4 games away from Memorial Stadium, you know, I really question that. Or at least the first 4 games for the crosstown rivals, the Huskies, were here. I think the Big Reds actually had 1 of the 4 here. That's what they did. They had 1 of them. But it was tough competition. I mean, Warren Kuzno Sterling Heights, Anchor Bay, and Utica Eisenhower. They were in Warren Cousino, Anchor Bay, and Utica to play three of those first four. Okay, they were in Memorial Stadium for Warren. There you go. Sterling Heights, Anchor Bay, and Utica. That's where their away games were. Those are three pretty tough away games, Anchor Bay and Utica. And those are two games they could have easily won, despite, of course, the Clintondale and Lance Cruz big-time victories. So really, I think the schedule could have gone either way for them this year, but I think they were a victim of a lot of road games and tough opponents in the early part of this 2010 season. The punt is down at the 11 by 9, Denzel Manning. 5 and 44 ticks to go in the career of the senior Big Reds. I can officially say it now. You're going out winners, and I like it when the seniors go out winners. And this Madison Heights-Madison team is going to go to 7-2. And their own playoffs coming next week. Well, that one kind of doomed from the get-go. 7 kind of dropped the ball, got it back, Black. But it was a real strange setup to the schedule this year, too, I thought. A couple Thursday night games, a Saturday afternoon game. But the one thing I liked about it was that the rivalry game was played late in the year, and that's all you can ask for. I used to absolutely hate it when they had week 3, PHN against PH. I hated that. They had it week 8 this year, and that was great. Obviously, that's got a lot to do with the fact that they're both MAC Blue teams this year. And it's just a regular scheduled game. But if they can keep pushing to have that game late in the year, I think it would value both teams more. Because you got 7 weeks before that to get ready, instead of just 1 or 2 like has been in the past. But a long time ago, like 10 years ago, they always used to have it the last week. I remember that. And that was kind of interesting, but the weather was always a little bit rough. Anyway, Black, the immediate give this time. They're just trying to keep this in bounds, but this might be unsportsmanlike against possibly 58 Vincel Shadricks. Maybe a late hit. It is. Well, they're calling it a face mask instead. Hard to say what happens sometimes at the bottom of those tackles. That's the play right there that has worked tonight, except Black play fakes and goes the other way. That has worked almost every single time they've tried it. Well, the penalty brought them all the way up to the 28, 1st and 10 from there. So Big Reds will take that, and more or less just to run this clock down now. They give Montez Jackson a whole lot of room in the open field. Got 15 up to the 45. Pushed forward, might have got to the 47. There's the Bloodhound. Maybe one last time. Although, like I said, I think we're going to be back next year. Hello, Bloodhound. He's a bloodhound in a hood. That's enough for a first down for the Big Reds. Yes, indeed. I got a smile out of him. It's rare to get a smile out of that guy, but I got one. Up on the roof. Probably the coldest spot in the whole place. Smashed, smoked, you name it. 80. Rhett Ladd. Hammered Jackson that time. Woo. And you could hear that hit up here. Loss of 4 on the play. 2nd and 14. One of those hard, heavy hits you can't do anything about as a tailback because The penetration is so great, they're already in your backfield. At times, even before you get the ball on the handoff. And that was the case right there. Second down and 14 from the 42. Under 3 to go now in the fourth. Jackson around left side this time. A ton of room. Can't quite beat the safeties. And a leg tackle prevented 6 at the 35. Montez Jackson. Moves like Michael. Without the glove. And the hat and the shoes and all that. But yeah, good future this number 4. Definitely. Here's the replay of it. There you see around the left side. And a whole ton of room too. Like, look at that just open up from the get-go. And he almost beat them. Like, you can see him there. Right when I said he's not going to beat the safeties, he almost gets through. Here's a yard on the carry. 58 Vincel Shadricks. Another tough tackle. Another player down again. That's 2 Tyree Monroe. So right now, even if you're head coach Drake Wilkins of the Madison Eagles, you want to make sure you can have a healthy team for next week. Like, that's the other thing they've got to be thinking about right now, because their QB went down earlier, Lowry, and this is a team that's going to be in the playoffs next week. So they continue to be getting hurt here, and it's starting to get serious. I mean, are they going to have a healthy enough team for a playoff game? There you see it a minute ago, and he just did stick his leg up and make that tackle. Can't really tell by the number there. Can't see the number anyway. Player down, though. 1:29 left in the career of the Port Huron High School seniors. And I wonder if any of them during this timeout are kind of starting to think about it. This is it. And I'm sure as a head coach, they tell them, kind of look around one last time, kind of take it in, because really that's it, you know? They'll move on and have futures. Hopefully they go play some football somewhere else next year. A lot of them junior colleges. But if I was the coach, that's what I'd be saying, you know, as the seniors, just kind of look around that last few minutes, kind of get the last feel of Memorial Stadium, because a lot of people that played here, the seniors and all that, they'll tell you that. And it's quite a place to play football, and it's kind of got a mystique about it, an aura, and it's just something you never forget. Certainly, the player down, as we did with Lowry, we wish him all the best. We know he'll get up because he's a TG tough guy. But again, this is not a team coming in. Like, they were 11-1 last year in 12 games. They lost one regular season game and just that one playoff game, I believe. But anyway, case in point, they're not used to losing. I don't even know if they can name the last time they got beat this bad. So the talent of Mac Blue versus Mac Gold, I guess, did in fact take over. I said at the half, we kind of questioned coming in what team Madison was to match up against the Big Reds. Well, for a half of football, we had a nice answer. We had a good game. But it got to the point, I think, of where, you know, your depth takes over, your overall talent takes over, and the fact that the quarterback, Lowry, went down, well, that had a lot to do with it, but I think by then the Big Reds were going to have the victory anyway. The player's still down. There you see the time on the clock, 1:21, or I guess that's 1:29. 41-13, the score. There you see it. Big Reds on top. They haven't had much problems tonight offensively. And that was another key coming in, because obviously losing 10-0 last week to the Huskies could they score? Could they get back on the scoreboard and do it effectively against a team that coming in they didn't think was any kind of a pushover by any means, despite the fact that they were Matt Gold. Josiah Creedler takes the field. Not in pads, better watch yourself. He's smart though. He's the only one of the crew as far as I know. Next to the ox, if you count that. Do you call that a hat? I don't even know. He's the only one that was smart enough to wear a toque. Because it's cold. So still a break in the action. There you see. Player down still. And not a lot of movement, and that's not what you want to see at this stage, obviously. And it's cold. And obviously, not a real big shock. Yeah, I was talking about you a minute ago, Josiah, down there. But anyway, thanks again, Ed Sinek. Thanks again, E.J. Shea, as well. As always, great job. Great job to the Big Reds this year, too, boys. Double thumbs up for that. An excellent season. And to the seniors, hate to see yous go, but time runs out on you after a while. Right, ladies? It's a good group of seniors, too, though, as mentioned. Talented guys. I don't know how they're going to replace them defensively, but for the last 3 or 4 years, I've said it all along. How does Coach Mullins continue to find these kids, continue to replace one extreme to the next to get talent in here? Last year was kind of tough. I mean, you just don't replace Steve Sawyer and David Foster. I mean, the guy was nicknamed the Truth. How do you replace a guy like the Truth? Well, you don't. That's all there is to it. You don't. But Coach Mullins did everything he could to come close to finding a way. And it's not like they weren't exciting this year. They just a few bad breaks. But certainly, this is a team that continues to find the talent year after year, continues to be competitive. And they've been rewarded for it the last couple. I mean, playoff berths. They were close in the Taddy years to winning the first round of the playoffs. There you see them. The big red bench. Mike LaForge, right on, buddy. Right down the bench. I don't know if we've ever even done that. Black there as well. Some guys not dressed. Jordan Small. Great year, buddy. Connor Palmatier. There you see 54. Funny scanning the bench, though. We've never done that before. And that's nice to see. They can't show much enthusiasm, obviously, the player hurt, and why would you? And I don't even really know his name yet either. Some of those players kept pointing up here. I don't know if they're saying that's the big D or just what they're saying. Or even who the heck is that guy up there? I don't know. All I know is I'm cold. Well, that's interesting. Very, very interesting to know. Miss Gallio came up and just said, the big red players there where they they panned the field, they gave shout-outs to the big D. That's awesome, guys, really. That right there is why, I do it, really. I don't always get a lot of feedback. I got to be honest up here. So in a sense, because all these players, they watch it, I guess, the Monday night and the rebroadcasts and all that. They watch these games. So it's nice to know they appreciate it anyway. And it's all about the extra excitement for these kids. because, it helps them remember their experience at Memorial Stadium. There you see Big D Sports. That's my blog, by the way, bigdsports.info. I'll talk about this game on the blog. Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or something, I'll have this out. I'll talk about it. But that's definitely what it's all about. And even Chris Taddy put it all into focus for me when he came up here in the booth in like week 4. And I said earlier, I love it when I get to hear from a lot of the ex-Big Reds and everybody. The real talented guys that made it happen. For years. He said, you know what? The players watch this, and it's the excitement. It's that extra oomph that they want to hear. And that pumps them up. And I didn't know that, so that's awesome to hear. So the Big Reds are going to be 5-4. And a happy group at 5-4 because, it kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth if you're a senior and you leave on a loss. Fans finally cheering for that hurt player, Madison Heights. They finally get him on the stretcher. And I still don't have a number. And I apologize for that, for not having the number of that player. I just couldn't see it. But he's a TG tough guy, and I wish him the very best. And you hate to see that with 1:29 on the clock, too. And in the cold weather, obviously, the cold, it hurts more. But that's football. It's a rough sport. It's a cold sport. It's all of that. But again, my big question is, for Madison Heights Madison, and in their case, do they have enough players that are going to be healthy for next week? If their quarterback's out, that's a really big blow. And now another player here, and it's one of those where I wish I knew up in the booth what was wrong, to report it, but we can only hope he's okay and cross our fingers for him, and all the best. And the Big Reds going to walk away victorious. And that's the other thing. If your final game as a senior is at home, you really want to win it bad because it's at home in the glorious confines of Memorial Stadium tonight. Second down and 10 from the 35 is where we'll start from when play resumes here. Big Reds right now are just going to run this clock down and get out with the victory. Well, way to go, Big Red seniors. And every one of them on the bench there that just said Big D. Right back at you, boys. Let's get nasty. Port Huron, right on. Stiff arms his own guy and runs him right over. Therese Watkins there on the carry.
Therese Watkins, the ball carrier, stopped by Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas on the tackle.
Ball was at the 25.
So we're now to our final minute.
Third and about 6.
Well, he kind of bowled over his own guy there, but a blocker that got in the way, I guess. From the 25, it's 3rd and 6. From shotgun, Rock gets the odd carry. This is one of those senior carries. And look at him go, get positive yardage.
Donald Rock, the ball carrier.
And that makes you kind of regret not giving him more.
Madison defensive players.
Well, a good little athlete, but with Jared Chapman's speed after Black got hurt last season, it was really tough to find a place for him. But Rock, I think, is a guy who probably more so on the Big Red team, he could have got more playing time than he did because there was a lot that he could do. This will be the last play of the game. I want to again thank the two main men on the CPHS Channel 6 crew, besides the whole staff. The big fella in the truck, E.J. Shea, and head director, Ed Sinek. Without these two, there is no Big D. Years ago, I tried to make it in the business. I got away from it for another career, but thanks to Ed Sinek especially, the Big D lives on through CPHS, Channel 6. I also want it to be known that the Big D, I'm more than a guy in a booth. Every time a great player on this field makes a big play, and I get excited about it to try and build up the player more, now that's the Big D. That's what I'm about. Thanks again to the entire staff of Channel 6. Congrats to the Port Huron High Big Red Seniors. All the best in your futures. Indeed, you guys all know what success is. You had it tonight, 41-13. You've sure had a lot of it the past 4 years as well. If we don't see the Huskies here next week, then thanks to all the fans of both the Big Reds and the Huskies all season long. And thanks for all your support on BigDSports.info, my blog as well. It's a lot of fun, and trust me, folks, Memorial Stadium is where the Big D's heart is. Till next season, work hard, sleep lots. I'm the Big D, and I'm out.